Welcome to The Explainer. So today we're diving into what I think is one of the most fascinating puzzles in all of human history. Just think about this for a second. For almost the entirety of human existence, every single person on Earth came from the exact same place. And yet, almost nobody actually knew where that place was. I mean, there were no biology textbooks, definitely no microscopes, no genetic testing, and no handy little diagrams explaining reproduction. But somehow, against all odds, humanity eventually uncovered one of the most fundamental secrets we would ever learn: the origin of new life. But man, the journey to get there, it involved a massive secret that was quite literally hiding in plain sight. So that begs a pretty huge question. How in the world did we solve our oldest mystery without a shred of modern science? I mean, our ancestors really had to figure this out entirely from scratch. And it's absolutely crucial to get this straight right off the bat. They were not lacking in intelligence. Our ancestors were every bit as clever as we are today. The problem definitely wasn't their brains. The real problem was that reality had essentially just hidden all the evidence from them.
Just picture this for a moment. Imagine an Ice Age campfire, burning somewhere out there deep in the pitch-black darkness. Families are huddled around the flames, kids are fast asleep nearby, and you've got this endless canopy of stars overhead. Now, these people have been witnessing births their whole lives, right? They've seen mothers get pregnant, they've watched children grow up right in front of their eyes, but they still don't fully understand where babies actually come from. They're literally staring straight at the results, but the underlying mechanics, totally, completely invisible to them.
You know, it's kind of fascinating how our pattern-seeking brains are wired. Most causes in the natural world are super easy to spot. If you touch that hot campfire, well, you get burned instantly. If you drop a heavy rock, it falls right away. If you eat some spoiled meat, your stomach immediately launches a formal aggressive protest. It's cause, effect. Cause, effect. The pattern is completely obvious. But the origin of new life? That is a delayed cause and effect. And pregnancy absolutely does not work like a dropped rock.
Which brings us to this massive, massive hurdle, the number 9. Between the actual event that kicks off a new life and the arrival of a baby, there is a gap of almost an entire year. 9 whole months. That is just a staggering delay. When a delay is that long, trying to connect the starting event with the final result becomes nearly impossible, and that changes the whole game because humans are deeply, fundamentally pattern-seeking creatures. We always want explanations. We desperately want the world to make sense. So when the real cause is buried under months and months of time, the human mind just starts looking elsewhere. And while when we don't have the real answers, human cultures get remarkably creative. We came up with things like ancestral spirits, meaningful dreams, divine intervention. Basically, to fill that gaping void left by the hidden 9-month mechanism, humanity crafted these elaborate myths that mixed a little bit of observation with just pure, sheer imagination. Since the true machinery was locked away from us, we just filled in the blanks with the most spectacular stories we could possibly dream up.
But then, slowly, something incredible started to happen. Tiny little observations began to accumulate, and faint patterns emerged. Imagine an ancient hunter coming back to his community after months away. Life just goes on, seasons pass, new babies are born. At first, nothing seems out of the ordinary. But then, acting almost like an ancient detective, he starts noticing something a bit strange. Whenever certain relationships form, children often seem to follow. Not right away, and sure, not every single time, but often enough to make him pause. And then he notices the real kicker. Some of these kids physically resemble specific adults. They've got the exact same eyes, the same distinct smile, maybe even that exact same expression that suggests they're about to make a terrible decision. At first, you shrug it off as a coincidence, but then it happens again, and again, and again. And suddenly, a real possibility emerges. Maybe new life isn't just randomly appearing. The pattern is super faint, it is so easy to miss. But once you finally see it, it becomes utterly impossible to ignore.
Now, this kind of multi-generational detective work was only possible because humans have this amazing, unique superpower: knowledge accumulation. We don't just discover new information, we actively preserve it. We tell stories around the fire, we teach our kids, we pass these hard-won ideas from one generation down to the next. That means a super faint pattern noticed by a grandparent can be tested, remembered, and actually built upon by their grandchildren. The knowledge stacks up. And here is why this is so incredibly important. This wasn't just some fun piece of biological trivia. The moment humans truly grasped the biological connection between adults and childbirth, they weren't just passively participating in nature anymore.
They were understanding it. And that single realization fundamentally structured human civilization. It shaped families, dictated inheritance, built marriage systems, and forged complex social rules. A discovery that started as just a few faint observations actually helped build the framework for human society itself. It's a real game changer.
But even with all of those complex social structures locked into place, we still didn't have the whole answer. We essentially hit this wild historical limbo. People recognized the pattern for sure. They knew where babies came from in a very practical, everyday sense, but they still couldn't see the actual machinery running the show. The true biological process was completely invisible. So for thousands of years, humanity was stuck in this incredibly strange position. We knew enough to recognize the connection, but we knew way too little to actually explain how the heck it worked. The mystery got smaller, sure, but it definitely didn't vanish.
If we trace this evolution across history, you see us starting millennia ago, trying to explain the mystery with spirits and stories. Then, centuries ago, we upgraded to recognizing patterns through careful observation and cultural memory. And then, bam, we hit the 1600s. A massive revolution arrived, and this one didn't come from a campfire story. It came through a glass lens. The invention of the microscope finally delivered the hard, undeniable evidence that shattered the ancient mystery once and for all. Suddenly, humanity gained access to a microscopic universe. This totally invisible world of cells, microorganisms, and tiny structures carrying the genetic blueprints from one generation to the next, buzzing away entirely out of sight. And down there, in that hidden universe, scientists finally laid eyes on the true, physical machinery responsible for creating new life. And honestly, the answer they found was so much stranger than anyone had ever imagined. The contrast here is just staggering. On one hand, you have this completely silent beginning. Every single human life kicks off with an event so unimaginably tiny that it escapes every human sense. There's no sound, no dramatic flash of light, no big cosmic announcement. It's literally just microscopic cells meeting in total, utter silence. Yet from that tiny, silent spark comes, well, absolutely everything. Bustling cities, breathtaking art, science, sprawling empires, entire complex human lives. Even you listening to this explainer right now, you started as that exact same silent, microscopic event.
It's pretty ironic, right? Because if you could somehow time travel back to that Ice Age campfire and describe this exact silent cellular process to our ancestors, it would have sounded completely absurd to them. They would have thought you were telling them pure fantasy. And yet, it is the absolute truth, and it's a reality that plays out every single day. But I think that might be the most beautiful part of this entire story. Because at the end of the day, this explainer isn't actually just about where babies come from. It's a masterclass in how our species uncovers hidden truths. We are constantly running into mysteries, weather systems, the cosmos, diseases, the nature of life itself. First, we try to explain them away with stories. Then we start noticing the patterns. We slowly gather the evidence. And finally, we break through to true understanding. Not because reality suddenly decided to make things simpler for us, but because our vision, our tools, and our shared knowledge finally became sharp enough to see it.
And that process is still happening today. There's this fantastic line from our source material that really hits the nail on the head. Reality rarely reveals its secrets all at once. That is such a profound truth. Reality loves to hide its secrets. It hides them behind time, like that brutal 9-month delay. It hides them behind staggering, mind-bending complexity, and behind subtle patterns that can literally take generations of humans to finally notice. But every so often, a species staring blindly into the darkness notices something strange, a tiny connection, a subtle clue, a new truth. And the moment that truth is finally brought into the light, the world is just never the same again. So I want to leave you with this one final thought. If the very origin of human life managed to hide in plain sight for most of our history, just waiting for our vision to sharpen, what other massive world-changing hidden truths is our species staring at in the darkness today?